everybody, it's Tara. We are headed into the final stretch of NaNoWriMo, and this is where it could get really hard, because you might be wondering if these almost 50,000 words you've written are worth anything at all, or if you've just wasted an entire month doing this crazy thing. So today I would like to give you 5 tricks to tame your inner editor. You really think you can write a novel? That totally contradicts what you just wrote in the last chapter. If you're not gonna do it right, why bother doing it at all? What a mess. You call that a love scene? Ugh. You call that dialogue? Have you ever even had a conversation with another human being? Your book will never be as good as any of those books. Any of that sound familiar? That is the voice of your inner editor, the source of every critical, doubting, and fearful thought that you have while writing a first draft. It demands absolute perfection, and anything but is an open invitation for scorn and slander. But here's the thing, first drafts aren't about getting it right. They're about getting it done. The point of NaNoWriMo isn't to write a publishable book in 30 days. It's to write a first draft in 30 days. It's not going to be perfect. It's probably not even going to be very good. But that's okay. Most published authors will tell you that it took them 2, 3, 4, even more rounds of revision before their books looked anything like what sits on your shelves today. But you can't revise what isn't there. You need to write that awful first draft before you can shape it into something great. And to do that, especially in only 30 days, you need to push past all those critical, doubting, and fearful thoughts that will make you want to give up. So here are 5 tried and true ways to silence those thoughts so that you can write in peace. Trick number 1, leave a trail of breadcrumbs. You should absolutely ignore your inner editor when it says things like, "You're a terrible writer. You can't do this. You're just wasting your time." But sometimes it knows what it's talking about. Sometimes you will write absolute garbage. But instead of taking the time to think of something better now, just mark that sentence so you don't forget to fix it later. Highlight it, or put it in brackets, or stick hashtags before and after it. Anything that you can easily find later by scrolling through your document or running a search. And when a visual reminder just won't cut it, take notes. Scrivener's document notes feature is perfect for this, but if you don't use Scrivener, a Word document or just a plain old notebook will work just as well. This is probably the strategy that I use the most to keep my momentum going. Every chapter of every draft of my novel has copious amounts of notes of things that I need to address later so that I can keep moving forward now. It might be something simple like too much dialogue, cut it down, or something more specific like make sure that you mention this plot device here because it's going to come into play 3 chapters later. Whether the problem is big or small, your acknowledgement of it and your intention to fix it later will keep your inner editor happy so it doesn't drag you down. Trick number 2, pretend that you've already fixed the problem. Bigger issues than a couple of bad lines will try to trip you up in November. You might decide a few chapters in that your story would be better told in first person rather than third person, or that present-day Manhattan would make a better setting than 1950s Omaha. But don't waste your time changing the 10,000 words that you've already written. Just pretend that you did, and go forward writing in first person, present-day Manhattan. Sure, it won't make sense when the Empire State Building suddenly pops up where cornfields used to be, but it doesn't have to make sense. Yet. One of the chapters in my first draft starts out with a character present, but then I decided that he should have been kidnapped in the last chapter. So right smack in the middle of a paragraph, he's just gone. And that's okay, because it's just the first draft. Trick number 3, hide your text. If you're finding it hard to stay focused on what you're writing in the moment, try the simple trick of turning off your monitor or changing your font color to white. You will soon forget that bad dialogue a few paragraphs back, or even the questionable word choice at the beginning of the sentence that you just finished. If you can't see what you're writing, you won't be tempted to edit it, and even if you are, you won't be able to. Without the ability to move back, you will keep moving forward. And if writing totally blind is too much of a challenge for you, try to keep a few paragraphs visible at a time by shrinking your writing area. This will narrow your focus but leave you with some context to keep you on track. Trick number 4, write by hand. I don't know about you guys, but there is something about a clean white computer screen and a few paragraphs of neatly formatted text that makes me nervous. If you're struggling to think of the perfect sentence to put on that perfect page, get away from your computer. Grab a notebook, grab a pen, and write by hand. With no backspace key and limited space to scribble corrections, you'll have no choice but to keep moving forward. And writing by hand just feels more like a rough draft. It gives you the freedom to let the words flow, to write whatever pops into your head, to make a mess. And if you're anything like me, you will make such a mess that all expectations of perfection fly right out the window. Of course, you'll have to type up what you've written at some point, and at that point, you will feel the urge to edit. but don't go overboard. Try to keep it to minor changes only and only adding words, not subtracting. And if you don't have time or you just don't want to transcribe your work, just keep a manual count of your words as you go. When I hit the end of a page, I count up all the words on that page and note it in the corner. And then at the end of the day, I can add them all up and get my word count. Every November, I end up writing by hand at least halfway through the month, and it always gets me to that finish line. And there's just something so satisfying about flipping through that big full mess of a notebook at the end of the month. And trick number 5, give your inner editor a little leeway. The first rule of NaNoWriMo is you don't edit during NaNoWriMo. But I'll let you in on a little secret. I can't not edit during NaNoWriMo. Fighting against the urge just makes it worse. If I leave a complete and utter mess in my wake, it doesn't help me move forward. It just stresses me out. And stress is the last thing that you need in November. So sometimes the best thing that you can do is to let out that leash, but just enough to keep your inner editor happy. If spelling and punctuation and grammar errors drive you crazy, fix them as you go. It only takes a second and it'll make you feel better. Or you could just turn off spell check entirely so those annoying red lines don't break your stride. You could give yourself 15 minutes to edit at the end of each day, but only that day's work and only to add words. This will give you a chance to improve the especially awful bits and to work in any new ideas you might have gotten throughout that day. And don't cut anything. Just strike it out or move it to a cuts pile at the bottom of the document. You wrote those words, so you can still count them. I have an entire cuts document full of thousands of words worth of lines and paragraphs that I snipped along the way. And every now and then I can use some of them in a different chapter, which is another great reason not to ever truly cut anything. So if you have to edit, go ahead. Just don't get so caught up in editing that you stop writing. So there are my top 5 tricks to tame your inner editor. And here's one more. The very best way to silence your inner editor is to show it what you can do, to fly in the face of your fears and write that novel. Every word you write tells your inner editor that it has no control over you, that you don't need its criticism and its contempt, that it can't stop you from following your dream, because every word you write gets you closer to achieving it. So go forth and crack these whips at your inner editor the next time it tries to bite you. And then keep writing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this helps you power through the last week of NaNoWriMo and to reach your goals, whatever they may be. If you guys have any tried and true strategies for silencing your inner editor, let me know down below so that I can add them to my arsenal. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your writer friends, and subscribe to my channel for more. And until then, happy writing, everybody. Bye-bye.